Hello, everyone. My name is Murray Drinkwalter, and welcome to one in a series of video presentations designed to promote the Lakeshore Football Officials Association and other associations as we continue our initiative to recruit new officials. The Lakeshore Football Officials Association, of which I am a member, was founded in 1963 and is responsible for officiating all the community and high school football in the regions of Peel, Halton, and Niagara. We're very happy today to have two former OUA football stars who, after their playing careers were over, went to the dark side of officiating. I am really excited about this interview today, so let me make the introductions. Wearing the maroon of the Master Marauders is Ben Chapdelaine. Ben was a quarterback at Mac from 1997 to 2001. He won the OUA Rookie of the Year Award in 1997 and led McMaster to the 2000 and 2001 Yates Cup. In 2001, he was a Hec Crighton Award winner as Canadian University's most outstanding player. He was a first-team OUA All-Star 4 times and a CIS All Canadian 3 times. He is in the McMaster Sports Hall of Fame. After he left McMaster, he had a little tryout with the Arena League and returned to be a McMaster assistant coach for 2 years. He joined the Hamilton Football Officials Association in 2013 and joined the OUA panel in 2018. I was hoping to say wearing the tricolor of the Queen's Golden Gaels, but wearing the t-shirt of the Queen's Golden Gaels is star receiver Scott Valberg. Scott was receiver at Queens from 2004 to 2009 and won a Vanier Cup in 2009 with that football team. He is a 2-time All Canadian. In 2010, he had a tryout with the Hamilton Tiger Cats and was a member of the Senior Team Canada in 2011. He was an assistant coach at Queens from 2010 to 2012. And while attending university and playing football for the Queen's Golden Gaels, he joined the Kingston Football Officials Association in 2007. And he joined the OUA panel in 2018. I had the opportunity and privilege to officiate these gentlemen during their university years and can attest to their fine play, their leadership on the field, and the respect they showed for other players and the officials during their playing days. When I got wind that they were in fact going to become officials, I could not think of 2 better guys at the time to fill the role. Ben, Scott, welcome, and thank you for taking the time out to help us out on this interview.
Thanks a lot, Murray.
No problem at all. Thanks for having us.
Ben, I'm going to start with you. How and why did you get involved in football officiating?
Well, I'll blame you for that one. I don't think my last university game was finished yet when you were suggesting that I will have to move on to something else. And you mentioned that, during one of our many interactions when I was a player, you mentioned that officiating would be something that I could potentially consider once my playing days were done. And I acknowledged it and respectfully said, sure, maybe one day. And I sort of put it on the back burner. Shortly after I finished my university days, I did a little bit of, television broadcasting. I moved to coaching. I wanted to be, to stay involved in the game. But as life went on outside of football, I had to change my involvement with the game of football. I actually stepped away from it for a few years. And eventually I just missed the game. I missed the people around it. And that's when I sort of remember that conversation that you and I had and thought, maybe I should consider getting into officiating for the main part that, one, I could get back involved with football, but 2, I could also do as much or as little as my schedule allowed with regular work and family obligations and the rest. And that's sort of why I came back. I just wanted to be back involved with football people.
That's great. Scott, what about you? How and why did you become involved?
A similar situation. We had a local official in Kingston who, Joe Pacheco, he had coached me in minor hockey, and he put the bug in my ear and said, you should come out, and also gave me the incentive of having a little bit of extra pocket change after the minor football season. So I gave it a shot, and then it was one of those things that right away it kind of clicked. It felt like coaching, being on the field with the little guys, giving tips here and there. And as Ben said, it keeps you engaged with the game. Seeing all the players on the field, you feel like you're part of the community. You see these kids grow up through the years. I think that my first year coaching OUA, there's 3 guys that I had been refereeing since they were would have been 8 years old, kind of deal. So it's a cool way to stay involved with the game and still have an impact on the game as well.
Yeah. Okay. Scott, back to you. How was the transition for you from player to official?
You know what? It was easier than I had anticipated. As a receiver, you see a lot of the similar things as the referees would. You pick up on a lot of new things as well. But I think understanding the game, having been part of the game, seeing all the film that we do in university, it helped with the transition in terms of anticipating the play, understanding what was happening on any particular play, and ultimately just for a feel for the game kind of came naturally.
Okay. Ben, what about you? How was the transition?
One thing I'll say, obviously, you go in thinking, oh, I know football, I've played, I've coached, I'm comfortable out there, so it can't be that hard. Becoming an official is a different part of the game of football, and you have to be willing to learn it, and you have to be patient with it. The one thing I'll say is that the transition, in my personal opinion, felt comfortable because there's a lot of things that you're already comfortable with going to a football field. For someone who's never been around a field, it could be intimidating at times to walk out to a little bit of a crowd and parents and coaches and players that have opinions and ways of seeing the game. Whereas I think if you've been around the game, either as a player or as a coach, you're already comfortable around that environment and around that crew of people. So you can focus your attention more on your task at hand, which is ensuring that the rules are being enforced appropriately and so on. But I would say that obviously as a former player and as a former coach, I think, the learning curve is a lot easier for people who've been around the game of football because there's a lot of nuances that you're already comfortable with.
Okay, just back at you, Ben. Obviously, there are benefits as an official to being a former player, but do you believe it's necessary to have played the game before you become an official?
Not at all. And in fact, in all local associations across the province and across the country, there are plenty of fantastic officials who may have never played the game at all. They may have been fans of the game. They may have played other sports, or they may not have played anything ever. But it's not a requirement in order to be a great official that you have played the game before. There are people in the CFL who never played the game, who are fantastic officials and have learned the game from an official standpoint and can still relate to the players and coaches and still do a fantastic job. So I don't want to give people the impression that you have to have a football background in order to do this and do it well. What I would say, and that's just my personal opinion, I think having a background in it can help with some of the learning pieces at the beginning. Ultimately, you still have to learn the rules. You still have to learn the mechanics, and you still have to be in the right position to make the call at the right time. So whether you've played or not, that part can be learned.
Scott, what's your opinion on that?
I agree 100%. I think the biggest thing is you need to be a fan of the game. So having not played the game, if somebody hasn't played the game, they can still definitely adapt. Definitely, if you're a fan of the game, you've seen the game, you know what's happening. It's definitely something that you can join in and do. I wouldn't say seamlessly. I think Ben hit the nail on the head there. There's work to be done and lots of learning that has to happen. There's a lot of rules that I was very unfamiliar with when I joined, but again, it's part of the process. And as a football player, it made me better knowing all the different rules. So I definitely think that anybody can get into it. And like I said, there's a lot more fun in officiating than some people might realize.
Yeah. Now, I know none of us have officiated a football game since November of 2019, but try and take your mind back to a sunny Thursday or Friday afternoon out on a high school football field. What do you enjoy the most being out there? Scott?
Well, I mean, the game of football itself, like I said, you're a part of the game. You're there. You get the sights, the smells, the sounds, and the atmosphere as well. I think the last game I would have done would have been the Casa football championship game. We had thousands of kids in the stands watching it, and you get that atmosphere with it. The other nice part about coaching or refereeing, sorry, is you get to know the coaches around the league as well. So you get that bit of a camaraderie as well. People get to know you. They ask you questions because they want to know more about the game of football as well. So, the atmosphere is the biggest thing that I miss from it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Ben, what about you? What do you enjoy the most being out there?
I mean, I agree with Scott for sure. One of the reasons why I wanted to get back is because I wanted to be back involved with the game of football. So the X's and O's and everything else that goes around it is something that's always fun. I would add that in the Hamilton community, there are plenty of high school coaches across the school boards that either I played with during university days or I played against at other schools. And they've been around, involved in the football community in Hamilton for a long time. So it almost becomes a reunion weekend every Friday afternoon when you get to a field. So I really enjoy the interactions, not just with the student athletes, but also with the coaches, some of whom are former teammates and good friends. And it makes it for a fun afternoon when you have to make a call against a longtime friend who might not agree with what you've just called.
Well, you bring up a good point, Ben. It is a fraternity, isn't it? It's, the officials are just part of that football fraternity. It's not an us against them attitude. It's a fraternity.
And that I think might be tough for people who have been there as players, who might have seen their coaches interact with officials in a certain manner during their time as players, to then realize and walk away from that and say, could I really see myself wearing the stripes ever? I don't think I could make that transition. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about, the officials that we've interacted with, especially at the university level, was the professionalism and the respect that they showed us as human beings on the field. So that certainly helped me once I was done playing to think, could I transfer over and be part of that group? Sure, there's lots of great folks in that fraternity that I could probably be a part of. And I'm glad I have joined it because it's been a lot of fun.
Well, you, Scott, what do you think about us being part of the football fraternity?
I think absolutely. I think I agree with Ben again about for the coaches are all on our side. They want to know more about the game themselves. And Kingston's a small town, so there's in the high schools here. I think there's five coaches who I played with when I was at Queens. So again, it's a friendly interaction, and we're definitely part of the game. It'd be pretty tough to actually play a game without the officials there. So I think I would agree that we are definitely part of that fraternity, and I think as long as we have that we're there and we have the conversations and we help everybody build the game, then I think we should continue to be.
I think that's one thing I've noticed over the last little while is that the more former players there are as officials, the more the coaches are receptive to have conversations as colleagues and partners with the officials, rather than saying, I know you have something against me. So what, whereas now you can just say, no, these are the rules. Here's why we're applying it this way. And the reverse. I've seen plenty of cases, and I'm sure we all have, where you walk away from a convert and you tell a player, just tell your coach when you get back that you only had 10 players on the field for this convert. It didn't make any difference. No one was penalized, but just let them know. And that information back and forth, I think, helps with the long-term relationship.
You brought up a very valid point there. I know in the area that I officiate high school football, the region of Halton, there are a number of former CIS players or U Sport players who are now teachers and who are now head coaches of football programs. And that familiarity has really, really helped over the years in dealing with those guys. And I think there's more of a respect, a mutual respect there than there would be with an individual that you don't know. Ben, what qualities do you expect of a new official? And what advice would you give to someone who thinks they may be interested in becoming a football official?
We've touched on it a little bit. I think you have to enjoy the game of football. It's a few hours out there every week. There's ups and downs as part of it. If you're not enjoying being around the game, it's going to be really tough. So that's the first part. The second part, you have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to take a little bit of coaching from more senior officials who will just try to help and make you a little bit better at your job. And you have to go away and understanding that there's a task to be completed when your role is out there as an official. You're not there as a fan just to watch the game. You're not there, you're there to actually conduct a particular role that is critical to the smooth running of a football game and the safety of the players at the same time. So I guess that's what I would say. Be willing to learn, enjoy being around the game, and be open to some coaching along the way.
Scott, what advice would you give?
One of the biggest things that I would add to is, that the teamwork aspect of it. When you officiate it, you're not there by yourself. You got, depending on where you are, you have 3-4 other guys there with you to help you out. And they also kind of depend on you. You're just another kind of leg on the table to help keep things standing. The other big thing as an official is there's a certain amount of resilience that has to happen. Everybody's going to miss that one thing that they wish they hadn't. People are going to misinterpret a call. But that's part of the game. Stuff happens, and I think if you can be resilient, or you can have that short memory, I think that goes a long way as an official to develop and grow and learn from things that have happened in the past, and improve on it, and don't make that mistake again.
Great. What would you say to a former U Sport player or a CIS player to get them to come out and officiate? What would you tell them?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is, if you want to stay involved in the game, there's two options. You can coach or you can referee. And if you referee, the time commitment is about a third of what it would be if you were coaching. And you, depending on where you are, the cash in your pocket is also going to be a little bit more. So, just the involvement and, same involvement, a little bit less of a time commitment.
Ben, what would you say to a former U Sport player?
I would go with the angle of, how you always said we needed better officials. This is your chance of making a difference. I think that obviously Scott is right on with that. You can stay involved with the game regardless of your commitment outside of football. Right? Everybody's got full-time jobs and occupations and families and demands outside of this game. But this is a great way to stay engaged in it, to stay connected to the people around the game, and to make a difference. I mean, Scott's mentioned it. You can't have a football game without officials. So we need more folks who are interested in the game, and former players can have the capacity to learn and come on board pretty quickly and have an impact around the community. So definitely an opportunity for them to stay involved in the game at a high level if they want to.
Well, guys, listen, thanks for this today. Your input has been very eye-opening, and I'm sure that it has piqued the interest of a future football official for the Lakeshore Football Officials Association, in Ben's case, the Hamilton Football Officials Association, and in Scott's case, the Kingston Football Officials Association. For those of you that may be interested in joining Lakeshore, feel free to check out our social media links at www.lfoa.ca or express your interest to lfoa-recruiter@hotmail.com. In the interim, stay tuned to our social media platforms for further interesting recruiting messages, presentations, and interviews, and prepare to get off the sidelines and into the action. Be a ref and say yes to officiating.